Okay.
We are here.
Sunlights and coconuts. Sometimes, this whole dancing thing. You ever hear the song Dancing by Myself? And even though you and I are dancing, we're just dancing in a different kind of way because of the I don't know, whatever you call this venue that we use for communication with each other.
Right. So that's fun. Hello there, Heartbeats. How are we today? Okay, so this is our podcast addressing and owning our emotional drama and identifying what we bring to our relationships. We believe healing starts within ourselves first. So we bring to you this unique way of uncovering limiting beliefs about relationships. And we examine these cliches. My name is Sharon, the Heart Lady, and this is the co-host, Dan, the Healing Man, and we're so excited to share our views with you. Dan, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well because we have another opportunity for you and I to spend some time together. And I so enjoy having that with you.
Wonderful. What is our cliche for this week?
Well, our cliche today is similar to one that we've done before. Love will keep us together.
Love will keep us together.
There you go. The Captain and Tennille song. Love will keep us together. And it was a big hit.
I'm aging myself. Of course, yes, it was. I just remember the reruns. Let's put it that way. But that cliche, love will keep us together, is similar for me, like love is enough. So the question is love enough? And will it keep us together? So what are your points on that, Ben?
Well, my thoughts are similar to the ones that I've shared before. Well, love is enough, or love is all you need. And I say love is a very important ingredient. And so it's almost like you're creating or baking a cake and you put all these ingredients together. Yeah. So we'll call the cake the marriage, okay? And one of those ingredients that go into the marriage, of course, is love. Now, love in the feeling form, and of course, initially in the relationship, it's in love, right? We've talked about this before too.
Yeah, our last episode.
In love is important, right? Because not necessary, because we've already talked about this too, that some marriages are based on socioeconomic or political or, for whatever other reasons. We're talking about Western traditional world marriages. And so falling in love is certainly one of those ingredients in that cake, that we're creating for marriage. Right. And it's funny because, marriage is often celebrated with a wedding cake. And so it is symbolic, isn't it? Yeah. That cake is symbolic of that relationship with the two people who are in it.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that ingredient of love.
Okay.
Now, it goes beyond, though, the in love. That's the initial stages, the butterflies and the sparks that are flying with two people.
Right.
And then as it matures, it becomes a different kind of love. A different kind of love in the sense that the love now is more than just the googly eyes for each other.
Right. So this is similar to what we talked about in our last episode. We invite you all to check that out. What was the name of it again?
Love is out. You know what? I apologize. I'm not sure what it was. What I'm saying is the relationship begins to mature. That was a word you used last time in our podcast. I remember that.
That's right.
And evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were to ask me about, there are some foundation ingredients usually to make a cake. I believe there are 3 or more. one of those foundations to make
Mm-hmm.
a marriage is friendship. Friendship. And my belief is that a relationship needs to start out as a friendship
Right.
because it's so important that two people connect, not just through their pheromones and their sweat glands,
Yeah.
connect in another way, in their mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And if that is the foundation for the marriage, friendship, that is as sustainable as anything. Because the relationship is going to go through its ups and downs in all kinds of ways, including sexually, right?
Right.
Sometimes people just get right into the relationship sexually, and that becomes the focal point of the relationship.
Right.
And so what happens is other parts of the relationship aren't really explored, aren't really given opportunity to be known. Whereas in a friendship, what happens is two people sit down with each other, they communicate, they share their dreams, their aspirations, their goals. And when people find something in common, they have something in common, right? They have something to build upon. And that is important, right?
Right.
Those, we talked about this before, shared common values and beliefs about things. Those are important things that are a part of a marriage because they're the fabric of the marriage, of what keeps a marriage intact.
Right. And in these days, relationships and marriage hold a whole different meaning than it did 10, even 10 years ago, but at least 50 to 60 years ago. And further back, the definition of what a marriage is and what a relationship is has totally turned around, particularly for Western culture. And so our cliche was about will love keep us together. So is love enough? Tina Turner sings that song, What's Love Got to Do with It? And so if we really look into that cliche, love will keep us together, we do have to ask, is it enough? Love can fall short when there is no planning, when there's poor communication, when they don't have meaningful conversations, when um, maybe there's children or not, um, financial insecurity. These are some of the reasons why love may not be enough.
Mhm.
You know, then of course there's personal drama, there's uh, generational trauma, and so I think it's important that we kind of figure out, is love enough? Will love, just the emotions of feeling love, be enough? And so I'm asking you, Hard Surface, what are your thoughts? Um, Dan, said that that we
Well,
really.
what I want to say
Mhm.
is love in that initial stage, as I was saying, right? That in love,
Yeah,
that's what people sometimes see as the foundation stone.
yeah,
We're in love with each other. And that's what they see as this is the way our relationship is going to be steady, firm, and lasting.
right,
And you and I know that that's not the case.
right,
And so we know that in love is certainly not enough. Okay. And love now, as it evolves and matures, becomes something more than a feeling. It
right,
becomes a choice. It becomes action that supports the relationship, that you choose to be in a committed relationship with another human being for all that that entails, right? And you brought up trauma. And so whether we like it or not, we all bring our baggage into our relationships,
yeah,
including into our marriages.
yeah,
And that's why I go back to the friendship thing, because hopefully some of that baggage has been brought out a little bit. in the beginning stages of the friendship. Not necessarily, we know that that's not always the case. At least maybe there's been a beginning there, a beginning understanding of who the other person is, where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that often that gets skipped over for
Yeah.
whatever reasons, okay? And
Yeah.
so if it doesn't happen early on in the relationship and it doesn't become revealed until after the wedding rings have been placed on the fingers, because now a person feels what? Safe, secure, right? That now I can be who I truly am with this person. Another word that you and I use regularly, vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I talk about often is that when people sit down initially, they share their aspirations, their dreams and goals. And at the time, both people are sincere and authentic about what they say. Now, what happens, a big C is change. As we develop in our lives, we change. And so I'm going to bring in another word, and I've used this regularly. It's actually a phrase. As the other person changes, I may feel betrayed because what? That's not what we initially talked about. And now you're presenting yourself in a different way. And that's where this whole notion of love is love enough to sustain the relationship. And you know what my answer is? It depends. It
Mm.
depends because go back to what you said about trauma, right? Each and every one of us has a different level of what we can handle
Mm-hmm.
and what we can't handle based mostly on our past,
Yeah.
right? In our past relationships. So
Mm-hmm.
let's use the word again, betrayal. And if you actually look at the song, Love Will Keep Us Together, and you look at the lyrics, it's about betrayal.
Mm.
And often betrayal is enough to really dissolve a marriage because
What?
trust, another factor, has been broken.
Mm.
And when trust is broken, it becomes crucial to be honest and to explore how the person who has been betrayed or feels betrayed has been affected by it.
That's
So you may still love the person who betrays you, and that may not be enough
that's right. Is it enough?
because of your own past trauma, your own past relationships.
And the
You're
examples that
not
he could
able.
set for you as what a loving relationship looks like. So yeah, I think that ultimately the essence of love can be there, but it may not be enough to hold the marriage or the relationship together. Because it's all about, the attitudes of what love is, the flexibility, uh, your mutual goals, your spiritual aspirations and spiritual alignments, your intimacy, the amount of respect. So, in order for love to keep you together, would be more like if you have mastered interdependence in that loving nature.
Mhm.
And so, I think it's, you know, I had said earlier about not that we don't plan. So even though we love each other, the initial thing is always the attraction, maybe the chemical reactions, as you said, the sexual attractions, the fun, or this person has all these outward appearances that we like. And then maybe we can sit and talk and feel like we're good friends. But at the end of the day, is that enough? You know, I was reading this article by this lady called, her name was Bethany Dash. And she wrote this article, Is Love Enough to Sustain a Marriage? And I took a quote, and she says, and I put some of my, excuse me, I put some of my words in there. Anyway, the gist of it, to paraphrase, love alone cannot carry a relationship to a committed marriage through all of the challenges and all the years that lead us to until death do us part.
Mm.
Hmm. So can love carry you all the way? And if you're married, can it carry you all the way till death do us part? And there are many, many successful marriages and relationships and unions that have lasted the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
Many, more than we would realize that we hear about because we
That
usually
is
hear
true.
about all the downfalls and all the challenges that people cannot rise to the occasion for. And so I'd love to hear what our viewers have to say. Please, please comment. Is love enough? Can love keep you together? Is it worth trying? You know, I
Mm.
realize that a lot of people get married or shack up or live together, whatever terminology you want, with the thought in mind that if this doesn't last, we can always go our separate ways. We can get a divorce, whatever. And when you go into a long-term relationship with the thought that if this does not work,
Mm-hmm.
then damn, right?
Well,
May not
I'm gonna play both sides of that
Yeah.
because I believe that if you're always looking for that way out, right, or that hatch to escape, then you're not going to be all in. You're not going to be committed in the
Yeah.
relationship. Now, at the same time, though, I say this to people I coach. It's
Okay.
important to know that you are not glued to the other person, and the other person is not glued to you. In other words, you do have the choice. And to me, that's a key word, right? Choice. You're choosing to stay together. And if love is one of those reasons, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, what I say though is that love is not enough, though, in my belief,
Mm-hmm.
to keep a marriage together. There needs to be other aspects, just like the recipe to the cake. There
Yeah.
need to be other ingredients that are involved in the
Yeah.
marriage being sustainable.
That's right. Love
And
is
not
the
just sustainable,
foundation.
because
Yeah.
that sounds like, sustainable means surviving, right? And
Okay.
sometimes a marriage does feel like it's surviving.
Yeah.
I get that. I've experienced that.
Yeah.
And marriages are like roller coasters, right? And
Yeah.
including the in love. You may experience being in love with your spouse again in ways that you didn't even experience previously.
That's right.
And that goes back to the whole notion of you have to put effort into the relationship. And we've talked about that before too. Effort. You must put effort into the relationship. You cannot just take it for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd like to say also that I believe I've said that in our earlier episodes that we end up having couples or individuals coming to us when they don't have anywhere else to turn. And I would like to invite you, don't wait till that happens. It's always good to have a checkup and maintenance. I always tell my couples, every 6 months, every 12 months, check in with each other. How are you feeling? How do I make you feel? What can I do to further support you? What are you thinking about that we should be doing in the next year, in the next 5 years? If you have children, talk about them. Have those meaningful conversations so that when there won't be any surprises that y'all are not connected. There's gonna always
Well,
be life gives you surprises, right? As the
yes.
kids say, life be lifing. This is true,
Yes.
right?
Well, I mean, wouldn't life be boring? Honestly, life would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
boring if there
yeah.
weren't those kinds of surprises, whether we welcome them or not,
Right.
right?
That's
So I'm going to tell you a story. My wife Maggie and I, we were coming to our 25th anniversary,
right.
and we've been having some ups and downs in our marriages, like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually sat down as we were getting closer and closer to our 25th anniversary. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. And we said, okay, do we want to celebrate and go on a trip?
Yeah,
Do we want to have a party here with our friends? Or do we want to get a divorce? And you know what?
yeah,
It's important to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
As
that.
blunt as that may sound, right?
Yeah,
Because
that was straightforward, and you
that's
don't
right.
know what the other person may be thinking, and even though it may take you as a surprise, what, you really even think that we should have a divorce?
Well, it wasn't a
Like,
surprise to either one of us because our children now, and this happens often,
yeah,
right? We're out of the house.
right,
And how often does that happen when the children are now out of the nest and
yeah,
grown? And
mhm,
what kept people together in a marriage was family,
family,
right? That was what was keeping people together. And then when the children leave, two people look at each other almost like strangers.
yeah, yeah,
And that happens often. And so that's when my wife and I, because we had that honest conversation, we really did have some great dialogue with each other. Once again, about going back to what you were talking about, well, what do you want?
yeah,
What do you see for yourself in the next
right,
10 years? And what do I? And then the whole idea of supporting each other again, right? Even though things change,
yeah,
they do,
hmm,
supporting each other
yeah,
in what the other person wants.
that's right. And so that's what we would like to take away our viewpoint on, is love enough? Can love keep us together? Love is a foundation, it's a foundation block along with trust and the other core values that keep a relationship together. But we also want to remind you, as you know, that you love someone, but you can't live with them, right? Like
That's right.
family and
In
even
fact, I just
friends.
talked with someone
Yeah,
who said the very thing. He said, "You know what? The best thing happened to me and my wife, we got a divorce."
yeah,
And he says, "And now we're better friends."
that's right. So,
And
yes,
they still love each other, you see?
yeah,
And I think that's what a great way to sort of bring
put
this
that
all
to all
together.
back circle because that
They're
kind of,
no longer married.
yeah,
They love each other because the truth is they couldn't stand living with each other anymore.
yeah,
And now they see each other regularly, yet they go home to their own separate places,
yeah.
and they're in a relationship that works for both
It
of them.
works for both of them. So yeah, so hopefully people can figure that out before they bring children in, and then having broken families, and children are living in one home to another home. So I'm just imploring on particularly those who are looking forward to getting married, is to really have some counseling, have some coaching, have some
Mhm.
therapy, clear up some things that are going on with you. Maybe you didn't even realize it. Take a look at your family history, the patterns, and how they were. And trust me, a lot of that, because emotional DNA does transfer, a lot of that may visit. So it's important to really plan and think about and understand each other's idiosyncrasies, learn how to have meaningful conversations. So love is the foundation. But I think for Dan and I, we both agree that it takes more than love.
Well, see, and now I'm going to get radical and I'm going to talk about self-love, right?
Absolutely right,
Because
man.
it's so important that we love ourselves first
Yeah,
before we become uh, connected with another human being in such a relationship as marriage.
yeah,
And it goes back to what you were talking about previously, right? Baggage, right? So if I've been in previous relationships and they haven't worked out,
yeah,
then I've been impacted by them, right? I've been affected by them.
yeah.
And it's important that I be able to be honest and explore how they've affected me in my own view of myself.
That's
And
right.
so you used this word so beautifully earlier, interdependence,
Hmm.
which is so important over dependency. In other words, I don't need you
Yeah,
to be whole for me
that-
because that's toxic.
yeah,
I am whole and I'm bringing my wholeness into this
yeah,
relationship with you.
yeah. That's right. So there you have it. You got the 411 from Dan, the radical healing man, and of course from Sharon, yours truly, the heart lady. Let's comment. Let's continue the dialogue. Thank you so very much, and we look forward to seeing you. Check out our next episode. All right. All right.
All right. So